Martinez dragged himself down the narrow corridor of Luna Station, his boots making soft thuds against the metal floor. The supply run to the mining colony had taken 3 days longer than expected, and all he wanted was to collapse on his bunk and sleep for 12 hours straight. The lights overhead flickered in their usual pattern, casting strange shadows on the walls. He turned the corner toward his apartment and stopped. Something was lying near his door. At first he thought someone had left garbage in the hallway again, walked closer and saw fabric, torn and dirty. Then the fabric moved. Dropped his bag and knelt down. A small figure was curled up inside the torn cloth, shivering despite the station's steady temperature. When he pulled back the fabric, he saw pale blue skin and large eyes that stared at him with pure terror. The alien was female, he thought. She couldn't be more than 4 feet tall. Her body was thin, too thin, and covered with dark bruises that showed even through her blue skin. Around her neck was a thick metal collar with blinking red lights. Had seen collars like that before in the worst parts of the outer stations. Control collars. Slave collars. She made a sound, high and afraid, and tried to press herself flatter against the wall. Her whole body shook. "Hey, it's okay," said softly. He held his hands up where she could see them. "I'm not going to hurt you." The alien didn't respond. Her eyes darted from his face to his hands to the corridor behind him, looking for danger everywhere. Looked around the empty hallway. Nobody else was here. The station was in its night cycle, which meant most people were asleep or working in the lower levels. Someone had dumped this alien here, probably hoping she would die or be found by station security. Neither option was good for her. He made a decision, stood slowly and opened his apartment door. Then he backed away from it, giving her space. "You can come inside," he said. "It's warm, there's food and water, you don't have to stay out here." She stared at the open door like it might be a trap, waited. After a long moment she moved. She crawled on her hands and knees, too weak or too scared to stand. When she passed close to him, he could see more injuries, cuts and burns that looked infected. The collar had rubbed her neck raw. Once she was inside, entered and let the door close behind them. The alien found a corner and pressed herself into it, watching him with those huge eyes. Now that they were in better light, could see she had silver hair that fell past her shoulders, matted and dirty. Her face was delicate, with features that looked almost human except for the blue skin and eyes that were slightly too large. Went to his small kitchen area and filled a cup with water. He also grabbed a nutrition bar from his cabinet. Moving slowly, he set both on the floor halfway between them, then backed away to his bunk on the other side of the room. The alien didn't move for a full minute. Then, like a scared animal, she darted forward, grabbed the water and food, and retreated to her corner. She drank the water so fast that some spilled down her chin. The nutrition bar disappeared in seconds. Gave her 3 more bars and 2 more cups of water. Each time, she took them and retreated. Each time, she seemed slightly less afraid. "My name is," he said when she finished eating. "Do you understand me?" She tilted her head. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out at first. Then she whispered something in a language he didn't recognize. Grabbed his and activated the translation program. It was a basic one, nothing fancy, but it handled most major galactic languages. He held it where she could see the screen. "Can you tell me your name?" he asked. The processed his words and played them back in several different languages. The alien's eyes widened when she heard one of the translations. She spoke again, still quiet, still afraid. The screen flickered. It displayed, "Name is." Repeated, "Okay, can you tell me what happened? Who left you here?" She spoke longer this time and struggled to keep up. The translation came through broken and incomplete. Owners, angry, broke, plate, punishment, dumped here, trash. Felt anger burn in his chest. He had heard stories about slave traders operating in the zones between human and alien territories. Most species looked the other way, treating it as an unfortunate but acceptable part of galactic commerce. Humans were still new to the wider galaxy, barely 50 years since first contact. They hadn't encountered the slave trade directly yet. Until now. That collar said, pointing at her neck. Does it hurt you? His hand went to the collar. She nodded. Tracks punishes if runs pain, if disobeys pain. Can it be removed? She shook her head violently. Kills if removed wrong, explodes. Ran his hand through his hair. This was getting more complicated by the second. He needed help, but who could he trust? Station security was supposed to be neutral, but he knew they had looked the other way on plenty of illegal activities before. If the slavers had paperwork claiming as property, security might just hand her back. He pulled up his contacts on the and scrolled to Ben Shaw. Ben worked station security, but more importantly, he was human. Had known him for 5 years. If anyone would help, it would be Ben. Before he could send a message, his door chimed. Someone was outside. Made a terrified sound and tried to make herself smaller in the corner. Held up a hand telling her to stay quiet. He walked to the door and checked the security screen. 3 aliens stood in the hallway. They were tall, maybe 7 feet each, with skin and too many arms. One of them had a scanner in his hand, and the device was pointed at its door. The red lights on the scanner matched the red lights on its collar. "Open the door, human," one of them said. His voice came through the door speaker, cold and threatening. "We are looking for our property. Our scanner says it is inside your dwelling." His heart pounded. He looked back at who was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Then he looked at the 3 aliens on his screen. He thought about opening the door, thought about handing over and going back to his normal life. The easy choice, the safe choice. But when he looked at her face, at the terror and pain there, he knew he couldn't do it. Press the intercom button. "I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing in here but me. Our scanner does not lie. Open the door now, or we will have station security open it." "Go ahead and call them," said. "I've got nothing to hide." There was silence on the other side. Then the alien spoke again, quieter but more dangerous. "You are making a mistake, human. That property is worth a lot of credits. We will get it back. If you get in our way, you will regret it." The 3 aliens turned and walked away. Watched them on the security screen until they disappeared around a corner. He turned too. She was crying now, silent tears running down her blue face. "I need to make some calls," said. "We're going to fix this, I promise." He didn't know if she believed him. He wasn't sure he believed himself. But he had made a choice, and now he had to follow through. Picked up his and started typing a message to Ben. Then he added Lisa Davis from medical and Dan Cooper from engineering. If he was going to protect, he would need all the help he could get. Outside his window, ships moved through the dark of space, coming and going from Luna Station. Somewhere out there, the slavers were planning their next move. Had bought some time, but not much. He looked at again. She had stopped crying and was watching him with something that might have been hope. Made himself smile. "It's going to be okay," he said. He hoped it was true. Ben Shaw arrived 20 minutes later, opened the door just enough to let his friend slip inside, then sealed it again. Ben was a big man, over 6 feet tall with broad shoulders that came from years of security work. He wore his uniform, but his weapon belt was missing. "Left it at the office," Ben explained when looked. "Didn't want to scare anyone." He stopped when he saw in the corner. She had pressed herself so far into the space that she looked like she might disappear into the wall. "That's a," Ben said quietly. "I've read about them. Empathic species. They can feel emotions from other people." "She can feel how scared she is, you mean," said. "And how angry you are." Ben walked slowly toward the middle of the room, not too close to. He crouched down to her level. "Hello, I'm Ben. I work security on this station, but I'm here as friend. I want to help you." Didn't respond, but her shaking slowed a little. Ben stood and turned too. "Tell me everything." explained, finding the 3 alien slavers and the tracking collar. When he finished, Ben's face was grim. "This is bad," Ben said. "Slave trading exists in what the Council calls areas. Technically, it's legal if the slavers have proper documentation. Most species don't care enough to fight it." "That's insane," said. "That's politics." Ben pulled out his own. "I've been hearing rumors about slavers on the station for weeks. Command told us to stay out of it, said it wasn't our business as long as they didn't break station rules. They dumped a living being in a hallway to die. That breaks station rules." "Maybe, but if they have papers claiming as property, they can argue they were disposing of damaged goods." Ben's voice was bitter. "I hate this as much as you do, but that's how the system works." "Then the system is wrong." Ben smiled for the first time. "Yeah, it is." A soft knock came at the door. Checked the security screen and saw Lisa Davis. She carried a medical bag and looked nervous. Behind her was Dan Cooper, thin and tall with tools hanging from his belt. "Let them in quickly." Lisa went straight to, while Dan started examining the collar from a distance. "I need to touch you," Lisa said gently to. "I'm a doctor. I can help with your injuries. Is that okay?" Stared at her for a long moment, then gave a tiny nod. Lisa worked carefully, cleaning wounds and applying medicine. Flinched at first but gradually relaxed. When Lisa finished, she turned to with a serious expression. "She's malnourished, dehydrated, and has at least 3 broken bones that healed wrong. Some of these injuries are weeks old, others are fresh." Lisa's hands shook as she packed her medical supplies. "They've been hurting her for a long time." Dan had his scanner pointed at the collar. He shook his head. "This is bad tech, real bad. There's an explosive charge inside, probably enough to take her head off. It's also linked to a Deadman switch. If her heart stops, it detonates, and there's a remote trigger." "Can you remove it?" asked. "Maybe, but I'd need time and better equipment. If I make one mistake, it goes off." Dan looked at with sympathy. Whoever made this wanted to make sure their property couldn't escape. Felt sick. He walked to his window and stared out at the stars, trying to control his anger. Behind him, Lisa was offering more food and water. "There's more," Ben said. He had been checking his security feeds on his. "The 3 slavers you saw, they're not alone. They brought 6 more with them. Their ship is docked at Bay 17. And they've been showing paperwork to Station Command, claiming is stolen property worth 2 million credits." 2 million, turned around, for one person. "Are valuable because of their empathic abilities. Wealthy collectors pay huge amounts for them. It's sick, but it's true." Ben sat down heavily on his bunk. "Station Command is reviewing the paperwork now. If it's legitimate, they'll have to help the slavers search." "We can't let that happen," Lisa said firmly. "We won't," replied, but he didn't know how to stop it. They spent the next hour planning. Dan would work on finding a way to remove the collar safely. Lisa would keep treating injuries. Ben would monitor station security and warn them if the slavers got permission to search apartments. Would figure out their next move. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was something. After the others left, tried to make more comfortable. He gave her blankets and pillows, creating a soft nest in the corner where she felt safe. She took them gratefully and curled up inside. "Try to sleep," said. "You're safe here." She looked at him with those large eyes. "Why?" she asked through the translator. "Why help humans don't know?" "Thought about that. Because it's the right thing to do. Where I come from, we have a rule. We had it even before we went to space. No one owns another person, ever. It doesn't matter what species you are." "Other species not think like humans," said quietly. "Then other species are wrong." She made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Then she closed her eyes and slowly fell asleep. Didn't sleep. He stayed awake, researching everything he could find about slave trading in the galaxy. What he learned made him angrier with each passing hour. Millions of beings were held as slaves across hundreds of worlds. The practice was thousands of years old. Some species had been buying and selling each other since before humans learned to make fire. The Galactic Council had discussed banning it dozens of times, but economic interests always won. Too many powerful species made too much money from the trade. Humans had been part of the galactic community for 50 years, but they were still considered newcomers, young and naive. Their opinions on old practices didn't carry much weight. Chimed a message from Ben. They got approval. Station security will start searching apartments in 3 hours. They're starting with your section. You need to move her. Swore 3 hours, not enough time. He looked at, still sleeping in her nest of blankets. She looked peaceful for the first time since he'd found her. He hated to wake her, but they had no choice. Before he could move, his door chimed again. Checked the security screen and his blood went cold. 5 of the slavers stood outside. The one in front was bigger than the others, with extra scars on his skin and a mean look in his small eyes. He held a showing official station documents. "Human Martinez," the alien said through the door speaker. "This is Vex, authorized retrieval agent. We have permission from Station Command to search your dwelling for stolen property. Open the door immediately." His mind raced. If he opened the door, they would take. If he didn't, they would call station security to break it down, and he would be arrested for obstruction. He needed more time. "I need to see those documents properly," said through the intercom. "Send them to my—" "Open the door," Vex repeated, his voice harder. "Station regulations say I have the right to verify all official documents before allowing entry. Send them over, and I'll open the door once I confirm they're legitimate." It was a bluff. Had no idea if that regulation existed, but he said it with confidence, like he knew exactly what he was talking about. Vex stared at the door for a long moment. Then his beeped and chimed with an incoming file. The alien had actually sent the documents. Opened them and started reading slowly, very slowly. Behind him had woken up. She stared at the door with terror on her face. The documents looked official. They claimed as registered property of the Vex Retrieval Corporation, purchased legally on a border world 6 months ago. They listed her species, approximate age, and value. They had stamps and signatures from multiple authorities. On paper, everything was legal. His hands shook as he held the. He could hear Ben's words in his head. If the paperwork is legitimate, Station Command has to help them. But legitimate didn't mean right. Press the intercom again. "These documents are from outside Council space. I need time to verify them with Earth's legal department." "You are stalling, human." Vex's voice was low and threatening. "Open the door now, or I will have it opened for you." "Go ahead, but if these documents turn out to be fake, you'll be charged with illegal search. I'm just protecting my rights as a station resident." More silence. Could almost feel Vex's anger through the door. Then Vex stepped back. "You have 1 hour to verify. After that, I am coming in with or without your permission." The 5 slavers walked away, watched them on the security screen until they were gone, then immediately sent messages to everyone he could think of. Ben, Lisa, Dan, other human pilots and workers on the station. He also sent a message to someone he'd never contacted before. Ambassador Hayes, Earth's diplomatic representative to the Galactic Council. She was stationed 3 systems away, but maybe she could do something. Didn't expect a response. Ambassadors didn't usually care about one cargo pilot's problems. His chimed 30 seconds later. "I'm coming," the message said. "Don't let them take her. I'll be there in 6 hours." Stared at the message in surprise. Then he smiled. He had bought 1 hour, now he had to buy 5 more. He turned to, "We need to move you. Is there somewhere on the station you can hide?" She shook her head. "Collar tracks everywhere, they always find." "Then we don't hide you. We hide you in the one place they won't look." "Where?" "Grabbed his jacket, with a few hundred humans who won't let them take you." He helped stand. She was weak and scared, but she trusted him. That meant something. Together, they headed for the door. The market district was crowded even during night cycle. Had sent his messages ahead, and the humans who worked and lived on Luna Station had responded faster than he'd hoped. By the time he arrived there were already 50 people gathered near the central plaza. More were coming. "This way," Lisa said, appearing next to them. She took his other arm and helped support her. "We've set up a space in the back of Martinez's restaurant. Your uncle was happy to help." Felt a surge of gratitude. His uncle Carlos ran a small earth food restaurant that served the human workers. It was neutral ground, and usually busy enough that station security didn't pay much attention to it. They moved through the crowd, kept her head down, trying to stay hidden in the middle of the group, but noticed something. The other humans weren't just walking with them. They were forming a barrier around, shielding her from sight. None of them had been asked to do this. They had just done it. When they reached the restaurant, Carlos was waiting at the door. He was older than, within his hair and kind eyes that reminded of his father. "Bring her in," Carlos said. "I've got a storage room in back. It's not fancy, but it's safe." They got settled in the storage room. Someone had already brought blankets and pillows. Lisa checked her injuries again while Dan set up equipment to analyze the collar. "Status?" asked Ben, who had followed them. "Vex and his crew are searching the apartment sector. They've got 4 station security officers with them now. They're checking every dwelling, but they're taking their time, probably hoping to scare people into cooperating." Ben looked at his. "They'll reach your apartment in about 30 minutes. When they find it empty, they'll start looking elsewhere." "How long until the ambassador gets here?" 5 hours minimum, probably 6. Did the math in his head. They needed to keep hidden for 6 hours, possibly longer, in a station where she was being actively tracked by the collar she wore. "I have an idea about that," Dan said. He had connected his equipment to a portable power source and was adjusting settings. "The collar sends out a signal. I can't block it, but I might be able to scramble it, make it harder to pinpoint her exact location." "Do it," said. Dan worked for 20 minutes, explaining what he was doing as he went. The collar's signal operated on a frequency that most species used for property tracking. It was designed to be easy to follow. But if Dan could flood the area with similar signals on the same frequency, it would create interference. Like trying to find one specific flashlight when thousands of flashlights are shining, Dan explained. "They'll know she's somewhere in this sector, but they won't be able to pinpoint exactly where." He activated his device. The collar's red lights flickered, then settled into a slower blinking pattern. "It's working," Dan said. "But this is temporary. My equipment will only last a few hours before the power runs out." Nodded. Everything was temporary. They were buying time, 1 hour at a time, and hoping it would be enough. More humans arrived at the restaurant over the next hour. Word had spread through the human community on Luna Station. Workers from the docks, pilots from the landing bays, engineers from the maintenance sections, teachers from the human school. They came because one of their own had asked for help. Carlos kept the restaurant open and started serving food. It looked like a normal busy night, except for the unusual number of humans all gathered in one place. Vex arrived 40 minutes later. Was sitting at a table near the front when the 5 slavers walked in. Vex's eyes swept the room, counting the humans. His expression didn't change but could sense his calculation. There were too many humans here, too many witnesses. "We are looking for stolen property," Vex announced. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "A female. We have legal documentation and station security approval. Anyone hiding this property will be charged with theft." The restaurant went quiet. Everyone stared at Vex. Carlos walked out from behind the counter. "This is a private restaurant. You need permission to be here. We have station security approval, Vex repeated. For apartments, maybe, not for private businesses. Carlos crossed his arms. Show me the documents that let you search my restaurant. Vex's jaw tightened. He pulled out his and started scrolling through files. While he was distracted, saw Ben quietly speaking into his own communicator. We don't have specific authorization for businesses, one of Vex's crew admitted. Then you need to leave, Carlos said calmly. Come back when you have the right paperwork. Vex stepped closer to Carlos. I can get that authorization in minutes, and when I do, I will tear this place apart. Go ahead and get it then. Carlos didn't back down. Until then, you're trespassing. For a moment, thought Vex might attack. The alien's hands curled into fists, and his crew moved to surround Carlos. But then Ben walked in with two other station security officers, both human. Is there a problem? Ben asked. Vex turned to face him. These humans are hiding stolen property. I have approval to search for it. Your approval is for residential units, Ben said. For businesses, you need additional authorization. You know the rules. Then get me that authorization. I can put in the request. It'll take a few hours for processing. Ben smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Bureaucracy, you know. Vex stared at Ben for a long moment. Then he looked around at all the humans watching him. Finally, he turned and walked toward the door. 3 hours, Vex said. Then I come back with everything I need. If you are still hiding the property, you will all face charges. After they left, the restaurant erupted in nervous conversation. Let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. That bought us time, Ben said quietly. But he wasn't bluffing. He'll get the authorization. The ambassador should be here by then, replied. And what's she going to do? The law is on Vex's side. Maybe it's time to change the law. 3 hours later, Ambassador Hayes arrived at Luna Station with an escort of 4 security personnel and a legal team. She was a woman in her 50s with hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She wore a formal Earth diplomatic uniform. She walked into the restaurant and found. Show me, she said simply. Led her to the storage room. Was sitting with Lisa, eating soup that Carlos had made. When she saw the ambassador, she tried to stand, but Hayes gestured for her to stay seated. My name is Hayes. I represent Earth in the Galactic Council. Hayes crouched down to level. I'm going to help you, but I need to know everything that happened to you. Can you tell me? Looked at, he nodded encouragement, then slowly began to speak. She told them about her home planet, a peaceful world where lived in small communities. She had been 12 years old when the raiders came. They took her and 40 others, mostly children. The raiders sold them to a trading house that specialized in empathic species. Had been sold 7 times in the 6 years since. Each owner was worse than the last. They used her empathic abilities to detect lies, to manipulate negotiations, to entertain guests by making her feel emotions on command. When she disappointed them, they punished her. The collar made sure she couldn't escape. The last owner had decided she was too damaged to be useful. Rather than pay to have her disposed of properly, they had dumped her on Luna Station and filed insurance paperwork claiming she was lost in transit. By the time finished, there were tears running down Hayes's face. Thank you for telling me, Hayes said. She stood and turned to her legal team. Get everything she said on record. Document her injuries. I want a complete file in 1 hour. She pulled aside. I'm calling an emergency session of the Galactic Council. They need to see this. Will they care? Asked. From what I've learned, slavery has been going on forever. Maybe, but humanity has only been part of the Council for 50 years. We've never taken a strong position on this issue because we didn't want to rock the boat. Hayes's expression hardened. That ends today. Vex returned exactly 3 hours after he'd left. This time he had authorization to search businesses, and he brought 12 station security officers with him. But he also found something he hadn't expected. Ambassador Hayes was waiting for him. Vex, representing Vex Retrieval Corporation, Hayes said, reading from her. I'm formally notifying you that Earth's diplomatic mission is taking custody of the known as pending a full investigation into her status. You have no authority, Vex said. We have legal documentation. And I have diplomatic authority to investigate potential violations of sentient rights. Your documentation will be reviewed by the Galactic Council in an emergency session tomorrow. Tomorrow, Vex's voice rose. That property is worth 2 million credits. Every hour you delay costs me money. Then you should hope the Council rules in your favor quickly. Hayes smiled coldly. Until then, remains under Earth's protection. This is illegal seizure. This is an investigation. If your documentation is legitimate and your acquisition of followed all proper procedures, you'll get your property back. But if there are any irregularities, you'll face charges. Hayes stepped closer to Vex. I've already found 3 irregularities in your paperwork. Want to know what they are? Vex's expression shifted slightly. What irregularities? That's what the Council will determine. See you tomorrow. Hayes turned and walked away. Vex stared after her, clearly calculating his options. Then he and his crew left the restaurant. That was incredible, said. That was a bluff, Hayes replied. I didn't find any irregularities. His paperwork is probably solid, but he doesn't know that. So what happens tomorrow? Hayes looked at who was watching them from the storage room doorway. Tomorrow, humanity makes its position clear. No more staying quiet. No more accepting things because they've always been that way. She turned to, you started something when you decided to help her. Now we need to finish it. That night couldn't sleep. He sat with while Lisa and Dan worked on the collar. The council session was scheduled for morning, which was only hours away. Are you scared? Asked. Nodded. Council will give back to Vex. No one stops slavers. We will. How you are new species. Small voice in council. Thought about that. She was right. Humans were newcomers. Their opinions didn't carry weight with species that had been part of the galactic community for thousands of years. But maybe that didn't matter. Sometimes, said, the right thing to do is speak up even when you know people won't listen. Because staying quiet means accepting what's wrong. Was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and took his hand. Her blue fingers were small and cold. Thank you, she whispered, for not ignoring. Squeezed her hand gently. I couldn't ignore you. That wouldn't be human. Outside, the station continued its normal rhythm. Ships came and went. People worked and slept and went about their lives. But in a small restaurant in the market district, something was changing. Humanity had found its line in the sand. Tomorrow, the galaxy would have to decide which side they were on. The Galactic Council chamber on Luna Station was designed to hold 50 representatives from different species. By the time Ambassador Hayes arrived and every seat was filled. More beings stood in the observation areas, watching through transparent walls. The Council had not expected such interest in what they considered a simple property dispute. Now they found themselves conducting the hearing in front of hundreds of witnesses. Stayed close to as they entered. She wore clean clothes that Lisa had found for her, and her injuries had been treated, but the control collar still blinked red around her neck. Dan hadn't found a safe way to remove it yet. The council chairman was a tall alien called Speaker Tarn. He had 4 arms and smooth purple skin. His species, had been part of the council for 3,000 years. This session addresses the dispute between Vex Retrieval Corporation and Earth's diplomatic mission regarding ownership of one female. Speaker Tarn's voice was formal and bored. Vex Retrieval, present your claim. Vex stood and activated a holographic display. Documents appeared in the air, rotating so everyone could see them. We purchased this legally 6 months ago from a licensed trading house on Border World 7. All documentation is in order. Purchase receipt, medical scan, property registration. That was our legal property. Hayes interrupted. She was reported lost in transit, Vex said smoothly. Insurance was filed. However, when our trackers indicated she was alive on the station, we came to retrieve our property before the insurance claim was processed. So you reported her lost, claimed insurance money, and then tried to take her back, Hayes stood. That sounds like fraud. The insurance claim was not yet approved. No fraud occurred. But you intended to commit fraud. Speaker Tarn raised one hand. Ambassador Hayes, please wait for your turn to speak. Hayes sat back down, but she didn't look happy about it. Vex continued his presentation. He showed more documents, all official, all properly stamped and signed. The purchase was legal. The ownership was clear. According to Galactic law, belonged to Vex Retrieval Corporation. The human took our property without permission, Vex concluded. We demand its immediate return and compensation for our time and trouble. 3 million credits. 3 million, said. You claimed she was worth 2 million yesterday. Compensation for damages and lost business, Vex replied without looking at. Speaker Tarn turned to Hayes. Ambassador, present your response. Hayes stood and walked to the center of the chamber. She didn't use a holographic display. She just spoke. Earth does not recognize the ownership of sentient beings. We call it slavery, and it is illegal under all human law. We haven't pushed this issue before because we were told it was not our business, that we didn't understand galactic traditions. Hayes paused. We were wrong to stay quiet. She gestured to, this is not property, this is a person, her name is. She was kidnapped from her home when she was 12 years old. She has been sold 7 times. She has been beaten, starved, and tortured. Look at her neck. That collar will explode if someone tries to remove it incorrectly. It will also explode if she tries to run. These are standard security measures for valuable property, one of the council members said. It was a large reptilian alien from the Skarn Republic. Security measures for property, Hayes repeated. Not for people. That's the problem. You see her as a thing to be owned. This is emotional argument, Speaker Tarn said. Not legal argument. Galactic law is clear. The purchase was legal. Then galactic law is wrong. The chamber erupted in conversation. Several council members stood, shouting over each other. Heard words like arrogant and naive and typical human emotion. Speaker Tarn called for order. When the chamber quieted, he looked at Hayes. You cannot simply declare galactic law wrong because you disagree with it. The law has stood for thousands of years. The law is only as good as the principles behind it, Hayes said. And any law that allows this is built on rotten principles. This council will not be lectured on principles by a species that has been in space for barely 50 years. Hayes smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Then let me make this simple. Earth will not participate in any system that permits slavery. We will withdraw from trade agreements with any species that engages in the slave trade. We will close our borders to any ship that has carried slaves. We will refuse all diplomatic contact with governments that support this practice. The chamber went silent. Every council member stared at Hayes. You cannot do that, the Skarn representative said. Human trade is worth billions of credits to dozens of worlds. Then those worlds should stop trading in people. You would break trade agreements over this, over one. Over the principle, Hayes corrected. Earth's position is simple. Freedom is not negotiable. If you want to trade with us, do business with us, or maintain diplomatic relations with us, you will not own people. Period. Speaker Tarn's face had turned a darker shade of purple. This is economic blackmail. This is a moral line. You can choose which side you're on. The council chamber erupted again. This time Speaker Tarn let it continue, watched as council members argued with each other. Some seemed angry, others looked thoughtful. A few appeared genuinely shocked. One small alien with green feathers and large eyes stood up. "I wish to speak." The chamber quieted. The alien was a representative from the Accord, a small group of peaceful species that rarely spoke during council sessions. "My name is Counselor," the alien said. Her voice was soft but clear. "They have stayed silent on many issues because we are not powerful. We cannot afford to anger larger species, but Ambassador Hayes is correct. This practice is wrong. We have always known it was wrong. We were simply too afraid to say it." Another council member stood, then another. Within minutes, 6 different species had declared support for Hayes's position. They were all minor powers, species without much influence, but they spoke. And the major powers listened. "This is premature," Speaker Tarn said. "We are here to decide ownership of one, not to restructure galactic law." "Then let's decide," Hayes said. She turned to "Come here." Walked slowly to the center of the chamber. Every eye was on her. Could see her shaking, but she kept walking until she stood next to Hayes. "Tell them what happened to you," Hayes said gently. Looked at the council members. Then she began to speak. The translation system carried her words to everyone in the chamber. She told them everything: the raid on her village, the cage they kept her in, the markets where she was displayed and sold, the owners who hurt her for entertainment, the collar that punished her if she cried too loud. Her voice was quiet but steady. She didn't look away from the council members as she spoke. She wanted them to see her, to understand what their laws had allowed. When she finished, the chamber was silent. "That is the reality of your system," Hayes said. "Those are the consequences of treating people as property. Can any of you honestly say this is acceptable?" Vex stood up. "Thee is lying. She was well treated. All health and safety protocols were followed." "Look at her neck," Hayes said. "Look at the scars on her arms. Look at the terror in her eyes. Does that look like good treatment?" "She is property," Vex insisted. "How I treat my property is my business." Couldn't stay quiet any longer. He stood up. "No," he said. His voice carried across the chamber. "She's not property. She's a person who can think and feel and suffer, just like you, just like all of us. And if you can't see that, then you're choosing not to see it." "You are not authorized to speak in this chamber," Speaker Tarn said. "I don't care about authorization. I care about doing what's right," walked to stand next to. "I found her dying in a hallway, dumped like trash because she wasn't useful anymore. I could have ignored her. I could have walked past and pretended I didn't see. That's what you're all doing right now, pretending not to see." More humans were entering the chamber. Ben, Lisa, Dan, Carlos, other humans from Luna Station. They hadn't been invited, but no one tried to stop them. They stood in the observation areas, a silent show of support. "Earth's position is clear," Hayes said. "We will not compromise on this. Vote to free and begin work on anti-slavery laws, or Earth withdraws from all agreements with this council. You have 1 hour to decide." "You cannot give the council an ultimatum," Speaker Tarn said. "I just did." Hayes turned and walked toward the exit, helped follow her. The humans in the observation areas fell in behind them, creating a protective barrier. Outside the chamber, Hayes leaned against a wall and let out a long breath. "That was either the thing I've ever done or the dumbest." "What happens now?" asked. "Now they argue. They'll call their governments. They'll calculate the economic impact of losing Earth's trade. They'll try to find a way to keep doing business with us without actually changing anything important. Will it work? Depends on how serious we are about following through." Hayes looked at. "How serious are you? You started this. Are you ready to see it through, even if it means trouble for humans across the galaxy?" Looked at, she was watching him with those large eyes, waiting to see what he would say. "I found her shivering at my door," said. "I couldn't ignore her then. I can't ignore this now. Hayes smiled. Good answer. They waited in a side room for the next hour. More humans arrived, bringing food and water. Lisa checked injuries again. Dan worked on the collar, still searching for a safe way to remove it. Ben brought news from his contacts in station security. The vote is splitting the council. The major powers want a rule in favor of Vex and ignore your ultimatum, but the minor powers are refusing to vote with them. Some species are threatening to leave the council entirely if slavery continues. So we're breaking the council, said. Maybe, or maybe we're forcing them to actually stand for something. The hour passed. A message came through to Hayes. The council was ready to announce its decision. They returned to the chamber. This time, hundreds more beings had gathered in the observation areas. The story had spread across the station. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Speaker Tarn stood. His face was unreadable. The council has voted, he said. By a margin of 28 to 22 with 5 abstentions, the council rules that the known as is not property. She is a free being. The chamber erupted. Some council members cheered. Others looked furious. Vex stood up so fast his chair fell over. This is illegal, Vex shouted. We have legal ownership. The council has determined that sentient beings cannot be owned, Speaker Tarn said. His voice was tired. Furthermore, the council has agreed to establish a committee to review all laws regarding slavery and forced labor. Any species that wishes to maintain trade and diplomatic relations with Earth must comply with new standards once they are established. Vex stared at the council in disbelief. Then he turned and pointed at, "This is your fault. You have cost me millions of credits. You have no idea what you have done." "I saved someone's life," said simply. Vex's hand moved to his belt, saw a small device there, something that looked like a remote control. Vex's finger moved toward a button. The collar remote realized what was about to happen. He threw himself at Vex, hit Vex hard, driving both of them to the ground. The remote flew from Vex's hand and skidded across the smooth floor. Ben was already moving, diving to grab it before anyone else could. Security personnel rushed forward, pulling off Vex. The alien was shouting, trying to reach the remote, but Ben had it now. He held it up where everyone could see. He was going to trigger the collar, Ben said. He was going to kill her right here in the council chamber. The room went silent. Every eye turned to Vex, who had stopped struggling. His face showed no emotion. "The property was being stolen," Vex said calmly. "I have the right to destroy my own property to prevent theft." "She's not property anymore," Ambassador Hayes said. Her voice was cold with anger. "The council just ruled that. You were about to commit murder." "The ruling is not final until proper documentation is filed," Vex replied. "Until then, my ownership stands." Speaker Tarn stepped forward. "Your ownership is void as of this moment. Security, take him into custody. Attempted murder of a sentient being." Vex's expression finally changed. He looked shocked as station security officers surrounded him. "You cannot do this. I have rights. I have documentation." "You have a cell waiting for you," Ben said. He handed the remote to Dan. "Think you can make sure this thing never works again?" Dan smiled. "Give me 5 minutes." While security took Vex and his crew away, Dan sat down on the floor right there in the council chamber. He opened the remote and started pulling out components. Watched him work, her hand pressed against the collar around her neck. "Almost there," Dan muttered. He connected his equipment to both the remote and the collar, running tests. "The detonation signal uses a specific frequency. If I can block that frequency permanently in the collar's receiver, it won't matter if someone else has a remote." "Can you do it without setting it off?" asked. "That's the plan, but everyone might want to stand back." Nobody moved, stayed next to. Lisa held her hand. Ambassador Hayes stood behind them. The entire council watched in silence. Dan made one final adjustment. The red lights on the collar went dark. "Got it," Dan said. "The detonation function is disabled. Now I just need to unlock the physical mechanism." It took another 10 minutes. Dan worked carefully, testing each step before proceeding. Finally, he heard a soft click. The collar opened and fell into his hands. Touched her neck. The skin there was raw and from years of wearing the collar, but it was free. She made a sound between a laugh and a sob. Lisa immediately began treating the damaged skin. Sat perfectly still, tears running down her blue face as Lisa worked. "It's over," said quietly. "You're free." Looked at him, then she did something didn't expect. She hugged him. It was careful and hesitant, like she wasn't sure if it was allowed, but hugged her back and she held on tight. The council chamber erupted in conversation. Some council members were already leaving, probably to contact their governments. Others stayed, watching what happened next. Speaker Tarn approached Hayes. "This was not the outcome I expected when I called this session." "Change rarely is," Hayes replied. "You have created significant problems for the council. Many species will not accept these new rules. Then they'll have to choose between their traditions and their trade with humanity." Hayes crossed her arms. "Earth has made its position clear. We're not backing down." "I understand." Speaker Tarn looked at who was still being treated by Lisa. "I must admit, I did not see her as anything but property until today. The way you humans reacted, the way you fought for her, it made me question assumptions I have held for centuries. That's all we ask, that you question those assumptions. Many species will not be so willing to question. This will cause conflict." "Probably, but staying silent causes harm. We'd rather deal with conflict." Speaker Tarn nodded slowly. "Perhaps humanity will be good for the galaxy after all, even if you are loud and stubborn about it." "Especially because we're loud and stubborn about it," Hayes said with a slight smile. Over the next few days, the consequences of the council decision rippled across the galaxy. 3 major species immediately announced they would not comply with any anti-slavery laws. Earth cut all trade and diplomatic relations with them within hours. 5 other species declared support for the anti-slavery initiative. 7 more said they would comply but weren't happy about it. The council committee began drafting new laws, a process that would take months or years. But the immediate impact was felt on Luna Station and across human-controlled space. Within a week, dozens of freed slaves arrived seeking asylum. Some had been released by owners who didn't want to lose access to human markets. Others had escaped in the confusion as old enforcement systems broke down. Apartment became a coordination center. He worked with Ambassador Hayes, Ben, Lisa, Dan, and others to find housing, medical care, and support for the freed beings. It was overwhelming, but they managed. Stayed with. She needed time to heal, both physically and emotionally. Lisa visited daily to treat her injuries and help her adjust to freedom. Dan built her a communication device that worked better than the standard translator, helping her speak more easily. One evening, 2 weeks after the council decision, found sitting by his window, staring out at the stars. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Home," she said. Her voice was clearer now, more confident. "Village, family." "Do you want to go back?" She was quiet for a long moment. Doesn't know if family is still there. 6 years is long time. Maybe they think is dead. "We can find out. Ambassador Hayes can send messages, make inquiries." "What if they are gone? What if village is gone?" Sat down next to her. "Then we'll figure something else out. You have options now. You can go anywhere, do anything, you're free." "Free," repeated like she was testing the word. "Doesn't know how to be free, only knows how to be slave." "You'll learn, and you don't have to figure it out alone." Looked at him. Why did help truth, not just because it was right thing? "Thought about that. Because when I saw you shivering at my door, I saw someone who needed help, And where I come from, if someone needs help, you help them. It's that simple. Not simple for other species. Then other species need to learn. Smiled, it was small and uncertain, but it was real. Is strange human, but good strange. I'll take that as a compliment. News came from 3 days later. Ambassador Hayes delivered it personally. She sat with and in the apartment. We made contact with the council, Hayes said. Your village still exists. Your family is alive. They've been searching for you since you were taken. His hands shook. They searched for 6 years. They never stopped hopping. Hayes handed her they sent you a message. Took the device with trembling hands. She activated it and a hologram appeared. It showed an older female with silver hair The woman was crying as she spoke. The message was in but could understand the emotion. This was mother. When the message ended, was sobbing. Put his arm around her shoulders and let her cry. These were different tears than before. These were tears of relief and joy. They want you to come home, Hayes said quietly. Earth will provide transport and security if you want to go. What about other freed slaves? Asked. Others who have no home. We're working on that. Setting up support systems, finding placement, reuniting families where possible. Looked at will come to home. If you want me to, yes. Wants should meet family. They should know human who saved. 2 weeks later stood on a transport ship heading to the Ambassador Hayes had insisted on accompanying them, along with a small diplomatic team. Ben, Lisa, and Dan had also come, saying they wanted to see this through to the end. It was beautiful. Green forests covered most of the surface, with small villages connected by walking paths. There were no large cities, no industrial centers. They lived simply and peacefully. This village was in a valley between 2 mountains. As their shuttle approached, could see gathering in the central square. Word had spread that was coming home. When the shuttle landed, stood frozen at the door. She had been preparing for this moment for 2 weeks, but now that it was here, she seemed afraid to move. It's okay, said. They're your family, they love you. Took a deep breath and stepped out of the shuttle. A woman ran toward them. She was older than in the hologram, with more silver in her hair, but her eyes were the same as. His mother didn't slow down. She reached and pulled her into a crushing hug. Both of them were crying. Then more came running. His father, her siblings, her friends from childhood. They surrounded her, touching her, making sure she was real. Stayed back, giving them space, but turned and pulled him forward. This is, she said to her family, human who saved, who brought home. His mother looked at. Then she did something that surprised him. She placed her hand over her heart and bowed deeply. It was a gesture of profound respect. Thank you, she said in broken basic language. Thank you for bringing our daughter back. I couldn't ignore her, said. She needed help. Many would ignore. Many did ignore for 6 years, but you did not. His mother reached out and took his hand. You gave us our daughter back. We can never repay this. You don't have to repay anything. Just take care of her. The celebration lasted for hours. The entire village gathered to welcome home. They had prepared food and music. They wanted to hear her story, to understand what she had survived. Told them everything. She spoke about the raids, the markets, the owners who hurt her. But she also spoke about Ben and Lisa and Dan, about the humans who had fought for her freedom. One human found me, said to the gathered, but all humans fought for me. They changed galactic law. They stood against species much older and more powerful. They did this for a stranger from a species they had never met. An older male who appeared to be some kind of leader stood up. This is the way of humans, to help strangers. Ambassador Hayes answered, this is what we aspire to be. We don't always succeed, but when we see someone suffering, we try to help. Then humans are welcome in space, always. The celebration continued late into the night. Found himself telling the story over and over to different groups of. They wanted to understand everything that had happened. At one point, stepped away to get some air. He walked to the edge of the village and looked up at the stars. From here, he could see Luna Station's location, just a bright point among millions of others. Found him there, is quiet. This is unusual for human. Smiled, just thinking about how all of this started because I found you at my door. And could not ignore. No, I couldn't. Why? Asked again. Gave real answer before, but thinks there is more. Considered that. Because ignoring you would have meant accepting that the universe works a certain way, that some beings are property, that suffering is just how things are. I didn't want to live in that universe. So changed it. We changed it. You, me, Ambassador Hayes, all the humans on Luna Station, everyone who decided to speak up. Is it really changed? Asked. Or will Galaxy go back to old ways when humans stop watching? Maybe, probably, but that's why we have to keep watching, keep speaking up, keep reminding everyone that freedom matters. Nodded, she looked back at her village where her family was still celebrating. Wants to help other freed slaves, ones who have no family to go home to, understands what they feel, what they fear. That's a good idea. Will help. Smiled, I couldn't ignore you the first time. I'm not going to start now. They stood together, watching the stars. The galaxy was still dangerous. The slave trade wouldn't end overnight, but somewhere out there, other beings were being freed because of what they had started here. It was enough. For now, it was enough. The next morning, prepared to return to Luna Station, walked with him to the shuttle. Doesn't have to go, said. Can stay here, would welcome. I need to get back to work, but I'll visit, and you can come to Luna Station whenever you want. We'll come to help freed slaves, to be voice for those who cannot speak. You already are. Hugged him again. She was better at it now, less hesitant. Thank you, Martinez, for seeing when she was invisible, for hearing when she had no voice, for fighting when everyone said to stop. Thank you for trusting me, replied. As the shuttle lifted off, looked down at the village below. Stood in the center square, surrounded by her family, waving. She looked happy. She looked free. The shuttle climbed higher, breaking through the atmosphere into space. Ambassador Hayes sat down next to. You know, this is just the beginning, she said. There are millions of slaves out there, the species that refuse to comply with our ultimatum. They're still trading, still buying and selling people. I know. It's going to take years, maybe generations. The fight won't end in our lifetimes. Looked at her. Does that mean we shouldn't fight? Hayes smiled. No, it means we fight harder. The journey back to Luna Station took 2 days. When they arrived, found his apartment exactly as he had left it. The corner where had hidden was empty now. The torn fabric she had been wrapped in was gone. But something had changed, was different. The galaxy was different. He sat down at his window and looked out at the ships coming and going. Each one carried people with their own stories, their own struggles. Couldn't help them all, but he could help some. His communicator chimed. It was a message from Ben. Another one found near the docking bay. Male, young, scared, bringing him to your place. You still up for this? Smiled and typed a response. Bring him, I'll help. Because that's what humans did. They found people shivering in the dark and they couldn't ignore them. They saw suffering and decided to do something about it. They stood up when others stayed silent. It wasn't always successful. It wasn't always safe, but it was always necessary. Martinez was just a cargo pilot. He ran supplies between stations and colonies. He wasn't anyone special or important. But he had found someone who needed help, and he hadn't ignored her. Sometimes that was enough to change the galaxy. And he would do it again.